Being in the opera industry as long as I have, I've seen props people become artistic administrators, or assistant stage managers become general managers of an opera company. As with any industry, titles and roles are fluid. So, with that being said, have performers' egos been left at the stage door, or are they running rampant throughout the opera house, including the stage? Does having a big ego help or hurt an operatic career? Editor-in-Chief Tanisha Mitchell and I discuss. Juicy Interludes, not your typical opera podcast. It may not be for everyone, but it just may be for that very one. I'm your host, Angela Renee Simpson.
I'm going to relate a story. I've done Serena and Porgy and Bess in many, many productions. But my first hire as Serena, major hire by a major company, was with Houston Grand Opera.
Wow.
And my friend, I'm not going to mention his name, but he has passed since. He was acting as my agent for me. And he helped me, represented me, and negotiated my contract and all this stuff. And I was very, very grateful to him. But he wrote me a letter maybe about a month or so before. Now, before that, I was in the chorus. A lot of my friends were in the chorus. I was doing small roles. I was singing Strawberry Woman here, doing Lily here, all these smaller roles. And all my friends were in the chorus and blah, blah, blah. So now he sent me this letter. And he said to me, he said, Angela, now you're a principal. Now you're a principal. And he said, you have to carry yourself as a principal. And there's certain things that you can't do as a principal that you used to do when you were a comprimario or in the chorus.
What are those certain things?
Well, he was saying, he said a lot of your friends are going to be in the chorus in this production, and you're going to be in rehearsal with them. You can't hang with them like you used to. You can't talk to them like you used to. The management will be watching you. The opera house will be observing how you conduct yourself and blah, 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 and all this stuff. He said, you're a principal now. You have to change. You have to act accordingly. And I read the letter and I called him after I read the letter, and I called him. And I told him I appreciated what he said to me and I understand, but I'm not changing for anybody. I said, I got this role, of course, with my talent. I auditioned, I got hired, but I'm not going to, because I'm in this principal role, I'm not going to look at my colleagues who are in the chorus as less than. I refuse. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to speak to them as I always have, and I always will. I said, if that makes them want to fire me, then I'm fired. I said, because I'm thinking, why would I treat them any different just because I'm a principal now as opposed to being in the chorus? Why would I do that?
But I've seen that. I've seen it.
But I'm just saying, and I'm getting chills just thinking about it. I would never do that to anybody who's my friends or anybody who's in the chorus for that matter, and I'm not friends with them. I would never treat them less than. We wouldn't have a chorus if it wasn't for Porgy and Bess. The chorus is really the star.
I have an anecdote that I learned, and it's interesting that you brought that up now, because I was thinking working backstage, and especially getting the training that I did in the library. You're meeting up with conductors, assistant conductors, members of the orchestra. You're really more in touch with them. Chorus, stage hands, custodians, security guards, mail people. You treat everybody with the same kindness and courtesy as you would the general manager.
Exactly.
I've seen it where the general manager walks in the hall, all hands are on deck, but the custodian walks in the hall. You can't say hello, good morning.
Right, exactly.
And this is another thing too that I would say to younger singers. This is from a person that works backstage. You never know where a person will be in a few years.
Exactly.
The opera industry, not even opera industry, the entertainment industry is small.
Fluid.
Yes.
One person, they may be in the chorus one year, and then 10 years later, they're the general director.
Absolutely. You never know where people will be. So I say you treat everybody with kindness and with respect. You're not taking people home with you, but at least, and like what you're saying, why would you have to change because you're a principal?
It's that they out there. There are some that are do that. They're
Um,
out there. You have people out there right now who, because now they're in principal roles, their whole personality has changed.
But do you think that the personality has changed because this person, and we're asking hypothetically, because I'm not in the place of these people and you're not, we can only tell our stories. Do you think that this change happens because the person feels that they are important and they have to protect themselves? Or do you think the change happens because of the things that happen to them in the industry, or both?
That may be true for either of those, but I think the other thing is that they change because they think they hot shit.
I've seen it.
I've seen it too. They think they
I've
all that. They've gone now
seen
that they've been hired and they're principals and they're getting some notoriety or this they're on television, they've been on television, they're promoting the opera, but and I'm not saying this for everybody. I'm just going to talk
it.
about my experience I've seen with my own
And
eyes.
same here, mine too, from backstage.
I've seen people who've gone from certain roles and then all of a sudden they're principals and then their head explodes and they think they're all that. This does not, I'm not talking about their talent. I'm talking about their personality change, how they have treated people they have known for a long time. It just goes out the window. It completely goes out the window. Or they feel that they don't have to talk to the minions because now they're principal. They don't have to acknowledge, the help.
The help, I've seen that. In the library, I've seen from staff. I've
Right.
seen that. The
See,
help.
right, exactly.
It takes a
It takes a
village.
village. I was about to say the same thing. It takes a village to put everything together. And I treat everybody, what the stage manager down to the prop people, right? Everybody deserves respect.
There's a lot of rich experience on stage, but there's a lot of rich experience off stage. So me, young, bright-eyed, green, when I just got to the Metropolitan Opera as an intern, I experienced seeing so many singers come in and so excited to come in and to have that opportunity to perform. You see the energy in them, and you're just so happy for them, so happy. And I've seen this more than once. And then a few seasons later, that energy is gone. It's totally gone. And there's one in particular where whatever happened to this person, I guess going through auditions and rejection and all of that stuff, it changed the enthusiasm. And it just makes me very curious because as somebody who's off stage, I'm not in the audition seat. So with all of that being said, one side of being bright-eyed, young and happy, and then the other side and being the whole industry is changes you. For you, Angela, what's the big myth? Because lots of times I would hope that people would keep that energy up of wanting to present themselves, wanting to be happy. But I have seen backstage, I've seen so much. And I think it's tied to what you expect. You come into something and you expect something, and then it turns out that it's not that.
I can only talk about my experience. I can't, I really haven't observed a lot of things with other people. I can't say what their first experience was, but um, I think the loss, like you might be right with the audition process, the enthusiasm being lost. We spoke of this earlier about the audition process. People take it personally, and they can't. It may have nothing to do with your talent or your ability to be that character you're trying to audition for. It just may not be the vision of the director.
Mhm.
The director had a different vision who they wanted in that space. They may say they wanted the person to be 5'5", and you're 5'11".
Mm.
That's not going to work for them. I think for the young people who are coming into this business, if there are going to be rejections, there are always going to be rejections. You're not going to get hired every single time. You're not going to get hired every single time. But when you do start to get hired, it will come a point, if you're good, it will come a point where the phone's going to ring and you don't have to audition.
Yeah.
That's the lovely part. That's the lovely part.
Yes.
But it takes time. It takes time. There's no you getting hired in your first opera, in your first, say, featured role or complimentary role, and you're a star.
It's rare
No, that doesn't. A lot of that stuff is made up.
You think so?
Let me tell you something. A lot of this, so I'm not going to say all stories. I'm just saying a lot. A lot of it is made up. There have been stories where people have jumped in for someone, and someone who was sick. I know even of a story at the Tucker Awards where someone was sick and someone from the audience jumped in and sang at the last second. They didn't become a star because it was in the paper.
Yes.
They had, that person had 15 minutes of fame, but I wouldn't say they were a star. Now, what I'm trying to say is that there's been years and years and years of preparation.
Absolutely.
It's not like the movies. It's not like the movies. Don't believe the hype. It's not like the movies where you all of a sudden because you know this and you sang it and they's like, oh, she's a star. We're gonna use her. It's not like Phantom of the Opera, with that,
With Hollywood, you've seen that a lot of people who are popular today are popular because of a film that they did. You can remember now. Not saying that they did not do films before, but I could think of two people, and this I know is true. Lupita Nyong'o, 12 Years a Slave was her entrance into mainstream, people knowing her.
Maybe I don't know if that was her first feature.
Yeah, I don't know if that was her first film. That was the entrance in people, the apex of people knowing, oh, I know who Lupita. What's her name? Ariana DeBose, West Side Story.
But okay.
Say it.
No, what I was going to say is that Ariana DeBose may have been her first lead in a feature film. That's not her first film.
It's not her first film, and she was a supporting role.
I think she's a musical theater baby.
Yes, but that West Side Story, that was the thing. That her performance in that film was fabulous.
She was fabulous before West Side Story.
Right, but
that's what I'm saying.
This goes back to so the myth is, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear the sound, does it make a sound? Think about that.
So you know why it doesn't make a sound? Because we all know where the sound of a tree falls. Yes, it doesn't make a sound. There's nobody there to hear it, but it doesn't make a sound.
And the question of, if you are a young singer, you say, I want to be a star. Sometimes it is that one performance. Sometimes it is, but not negating. That's the thing. Not negating the work that it took to get you there. Sometimes it is that one thing, and everything lines up around. The systems that we were talking about lines up.
Yeah, but is that we're talking about Hollywood? Is that story in opera?
That's the question. Is it?
I don't know of any story in opera where somebody has become a star
overnight.
One time, yes, from that one time.
Well, if you look at Maria Callas, though,
Maria Callas studied for years. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. She studied for years, right? We all know about the weight loss. We all know about that. But whenever I do a program for Opera Talks on Maria Callas, I always get this. People, it's who they know is Maria Callas after the weight loss.
Yeah.
With Aristotle Onassis. That's what's cemented in their mind. But not that Maria Callas before. The years and the recordings and the studying, especially with with Seraphine, all of those things that she did. I think we're in a culture where it's microwavable. You see like all of this stuff appear and you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to do that? There was an opera singer, I will not mention, I wouldn't name any names. And the person said, I think you would know this, that you support as many people as you can in your with your colleagues because it's so hard to garner that type of relevance and support. It's so hard to do that. What do you say to the person who's worked for years and years and years and nothing materialized as far as you are a working singer, but you don't reach the point, the pinnacle of what you think is stardom according to other people? What do you say to that person?
Everybody has their own definition of stardom. So what does that mean? So for some people, stardom means getting hired time after time after time after
Yes.
time, different houses, going flying from here to there, you know, staying in this hotel, that hotel, um, being asked to record, to make recordings. They consider that stardom.
Mhm.
It may be, but just in the opera world. It's just in the opera, in the the ecosystem of opera. Not world. That's not worldwide stardom. That's not worldwide stardom. But the question is, do you want worldwide stardom? Do you want your name to be a household name? Do you want? That's the question, because there's certain things that have to come. Now, for some people, getting that, doing a major role for them, getting that hired, being hired to do that major role is stardom for them. And that just may be all they want. You understand what I'm saying? And they say, okay, so they've done compromising roles, this far, and then boom, all of a sudden you get hired to do the main role of this particular opera.
Right.
And you get the chance to go on stage. So for some people, that may be their definition of stardom. There may be some people who don't want to be a star. They just want to be a working singer. They want to make enough money so they can live comfortably, and if they have a family, take care of their family.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's
That's
nothing wrong with that.
it just depends on what each person wants for themselves in this career.
That's the number one thing. It's knowing what you want for yourself and being honest with yourself.
Being
Because
honest.
because I have listened, I've seen backstage people who I've seen it time and time again. You want one thing, but then you say you don't want it. And if you want it, you don't have to tell it, but you have to start with, this is what I want objectively, like what you were saying before, that I thought was a very memorable thing. Objectively look at it and say, this is the type of career that I desire. This is what I want. Now, what is needed for me to get that? That's the number one thing. With the upcoming generation, that's what I would say. Know exactly what type of career you want. Know it. And if you don't want to, if you don't want the pressure of doing that, like, you don't have to do it. There are many options with other careers.
I have always been the type of performer. I don't care if you have problems with anybody on stage. You leave it off stage.
Mm-hmm.
Leave it off stage. Any animosity you have towards somebody has nothing to do with your work. Has nothing to do with your work. You leave it on. You do not bring that animosity on stage. You should be the ultimate professional. Do your work. Whether you have that person you can't stand, you have to dance. You're dancing with them. You have to dance with them. You have to whatever, kiss them. You have to whatever. Blah blah blah. Keep it off stage. You have to be the ultimate professional. If it happens, whatever happens off stage, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Don't bring it on stage. And that's been my golden rule for anything. Whatever I have to do, the audience is the main focus. You have to perform for the audience. I've been in situations where people have not done that. I have been in situations where people have taken whatever was off stage and brought it on stage,
Wow.
and made problems for everybody. Problems for everybody. Not
Mm.
change the blocking. Change their blocking, change this, change that, and made it for a very difficult situation and strange situation, and sometimes even dangerous situation. And so, as a singer, the people who are listening, the young people who listen to this, always be professional, always. And being professional doesn't mean being obnoxious.
Kindness is
Kindness.
professionalism.
Kindness is professionalism. And look at the Met. Volpe went from being a carpenter
Mhm.
on the Met stage to being the general director.
Mhm.
From the carpenter to general, I don't know what a year span that was, what, 10,
Yeah,
15,
sure.
20 years, I don't know. But carpenter all the way to general director. So again, and I also live by another philosophy. The back that you stab today,
That's right. Say it.
and I got this from Star Jones. I'm gonna call it out. I got it from Star Jones. The
Yes.
back that you stab today is attached to the ass you may kiss tomorrow. If y'all have to go by any philosophy, go with it.
This is Juicy Interludes, not your typical opera podcast, with your host, Angela Renee Simpson. And remember, you don't have to listen to me, but you do have to listen to your audience.